Chris Cuomo last night, if you're watching CNN, you know this story in Georgia. It's a horrible situation. This poor kid, Ahmaud Arbery, gunned down, shot and killed by 2 Klan members from what I like to call them, the McClans. So the guy that actually videoed this, he's now under investigation. The question is, why was he also chasing this man? Why did he video it? So I think those are fair questions. So he and his attorney did an interview with Cuomo, and I got to say, these two people, particularly his attorney, seem to be one of the dumbest attorneys I've ever heard in my life. This is Chris Cuomo asking Bryan about his possible relationship with the McMichaels. Listen to this.
Mr. Bryan, you are known as Roddy to friends, correct?
That's right.
And in the police report, the McMichaels referred to a Roddy. I'm assuming that was you, yes?
Hey, hold on, Chris. You've been a prosecutor, and you can imagine that this prosecutor that's been in this case 24 hours, she's going to start throwing stuff around her living room if you start doing her job for her, okay? Because as good as you are, she'd probably rather do it herself. Do you know what we could talk about without causing problems for anybody? And I know you're trying, but this man cannot be answering substantive questions about the case. And if you feel that we've misled you in some way, I'm sorry.
No.
Okay, first of all, the whole reason why this guy came on the show is to figure out what he was doing there, why he was following these guys, why he didn't call 911. And this guy, the attorney, won't let him answer anything. First of all, why even have him on in the first place? Because it makes him look like a dope. Then the attorney suggests that Bryan's low education is the reason for not answering Cuomo's questions. Have a listen to this.
Mr. Bryan, how did you come to be in the car videotaping that day?
Okay, we're not going there.
You don't want to talk about that either. All right, so let's do this. You are afraid of the facts of this case, Counselor. Why?
Sir, I'm not afraid of anything. And I'm certainly not, with all due respect,
sure.
I'm not afraid of you, but I respect you.
And I respect you.
You are a brilliant, very capable lawyer, and you are you are a very good prosecutor. And my client is a mechanic with a high school education, and if you've ever been to the high schools around here, that's not necessarily saying much.
Well, my client,
yeah, I can appreciate the honesty.
My client entered the Klan when he was 12 years old, and, he's only got a high school education. He's got a lot of anxiety when it comes to these African Americans. He only has a high school education, and he's only a mechanic, but he only fixes cars of the whites. He doesn't fix the cars of the blacks. So, you know what? We can't have him answering these questions of why he was chasing down and, him and his friends were hunting down this African American. We can't do that, sir, because he's just not smart enough to answer the question. So Chris Cuomo again asked, sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my client is but a simple mechanic.
It's just unbelievable. So the prosecutor, he'll be questioned, be like, sir, why were you following him? My client, I object, Your Honor. My client is not smart enough to answer that question. I'm sorry, I object.
I do declare my client has a haircut like Lloyd Christmas from Dumb and Dumber.
Actually, he did, actually. That's a very good point. What's up with that guy's haircut?
Again, the issue
aren't open,
the issue is he's afraid he's going to incriminate himself because he's not going to be able to answer the question right. And
Then don't put him on.
And I'm sure he is correct in making that statement.
Then why put him on in front of a camera? You knew Cuomo was going to ask. What are you going to ask him about? How was your day today? What did you have for dinner? It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. What African-American doll did you put on the cross and burn? Is that the question that Cuomo's going to ask him? It's just ridiculous. These guys are so stupid. Anyway, Cuomo again asked Bryan about his role in the case. Have a listen to this.
Mr. Bryan, what do you want the audience to know about your role, your feelings, and your sense of responsibility for this situation?
Is that a multiple question, Chris?
Mr. Goff, let him answer it. I'm sure he'll do a good job. You can always answer it. You can amend after. Mr. Bryan.
I would just like to say, first of all, I'm very sorry to the family. I pray for them every night as well as my own family.
Yeah, great job answering the question. Yeah, pray for your own family. This guy was murdered, okay? He was murdered. He's dead. Nobody wants to pray for your family. And by the way, this attorney then says that Bryan had no coordination with the McMichaels, even though they call him Rod. Yeah, I'm sure the attorney's telling the truth. Have a listen to this.
Mr. Goff, audience is listening now.
Yes, sir.
What do you want them to understand about why your client was where he was if it is not true that it was done in coordination with the McMichaels.
Chris, I don't think it's any secret. My client lives in that neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
He's at his house, minding his own business, and I'm trying not to complicate anybody else's job. He's at his house, minding his own business, and things happen, and in a matter of minutes, his life has been changed forever.
Things happened. Okay, let me be very clear on this. This man who taped this or filmed this video on his cell phone didn't call 911 before the call, didn't call 911 after the call. Why was he following the McMichaels, who refer to him as Rod? Why was he following the McMichaels? Why didn't he call 911? Why won't he answer any of these questions? I'll tell you why. Because the McMichaels, or as I like to call them, the McClans, told him to follow. I can almost guarantee you that's what happened. It's not like this dope, with only a high school education, he was a mechanic, by the way. His attorney would want me to say that. It's not like he took matters into his own hands and said, oh, I'm going to follow these guys. They're following a black man. I just want to follow these guys. It's not like he just did that.
Well,
okay?
and the attorney said he was at his own home. He said he was at his house.
Right.
Well, the video was taken while he was in his truck.
Exactly.
So things happen. What do you mean things happen? You mean he left his house because he would have never known that they were following him unless they were yelling at him, unless they were screaming, unless he was running away, making a commotion, which I don't believe Ahmaud Arbery was. But he would have had to basically things happen in that situation means he got up off his couch,
right,
got his keys, got into his truck, followed for whatever reason, just coincidentally just followed these McMichaels, and then pulled out his cell phone and took a video of it. I mean that right there should tell you this attorney has.
I mean, it's so ridiculous. It's funny.
Has literally
really
no
is.
idea what he's talking about.
Yeah, it's
because
ridiculous.
Because the last time I checked, he did not lean over from his couch.
You know what he said?
And take the video outside of his own home window.
He probably said, "Hey, honey, we're chasing another black man. Gotta go. Be back in a few." I mean, really,
Roddy, bring the camera.
That actually would not shock me if either of those scenarios actually happened verbatim.
I mean, seriously, this
I'm not kidding.
It probably happened, right? By the way, this guy has. I will agree with the attorney on this. His client. I don't know who's more dumb, his client or him. But I mean, his client doesn't seem like a very intelligent.
But the one thing I was kind of impressed by is
bring the iPhone 7, Roddy.
Chris Cuomo is actually a licensed attorney. He got his JD from Yale in '95. I'm shocked that this attorney actually knew that.
How does this guy how did he pass the bar? Oh my God, it's unbelievable. It's unreal. What a dope. All right, let me play you one more piece of audio.
Brunswick, Georgia School of Law.
Yeah, seriously. Let me play you one more. I like it when the attorney goes, my client, he graduated from high school, and if you know this area, that doesn't mean much. So basically he's saying everyone there is stupid.
Yeah, I do appreciate that honesty, though.
So Cuomo tries again, by the way. He was trying. Cuomo did the best he could under this horrific interview. He tried again to figure out Bryant's involvement. Have a listen to this.
What is your reservation, again, for your client doing what he is eminently capable of doing, saying why he was where he was, why he videotaped as he did, and what he understands happened that day? Why do you not want him to say what can only help clear his name?
Because, Chris, in America, as I believe you're well aware, we try our cases in courts of law. And this thing where we've come to in this country over the years, where important cases are being tried in newspapers and on television and on blogs and stuff, that is not serving the interests of justice.
But he's not on trial. He's not going to be on trial, is he?
He doesn't control anything. He is a pawn in a much larger game.
Well, you know what that leads me to believe? If I can read into this dope attorney, there is going to be a trial. He's going to be arrested.
Oh, of course.
And there will be charged. Now, is he going to be charged with murder? No, probably not. But there will be some serious charges filed here.
All you have to say, if it's the truth, all you have to say, even if it's not the truth, I was sitting in my house. I heard a commotion. I heard cars screeching. I heard someone yelling. I ran outside. I got in my car with my phone. I'm innocent and all. Come on. It's very clear. It is very clear
because that would be a lie.
That the McMichaels said, Roddy, grab your phone. We're going to go chase this guy.
Yeah, and I'm guessing they had some communication via text on the iPhone 9, via text
7
or the 4, whatever, or email or something along those lines. I'm sure they've definitely got.
Well, it doesn't even have to be that.
A lot of correspondence over the weeks. But I mean, if they're friends, which I'm sure they are, then he was
Well, I don't think
most
I don't
likely.
think they're friends anymore.
Well, clearly, but if they were friends,
How do you think the
then
McMichaels?
he's most likely culpable in this situation, and he could be an accessory to a murder.
I think if the McMichaels were free right now, the first person they would chase in a car again would be Roddy, because if Roddy doesn't videotape this whole thing, the McMichaels are not in jail.
Well,
charged with murder.
Roddy said he's getting death threats, and him
I
and his
believe
wife are
that,
sleeping in their
100%.
car. So
Yeah.
maybe the McMichaels.
Well, he only has
are
a
very
high school-
powerful.
I would not sleep in my car if I had death threats.
Well, he only has a high school education,
I feel like,
so you know.
I feel like that would be the worst place to sleep.
I mean, seriously, honestly, I'm not even joking now. Who is? Can you name one attorney that's more of a dope than this guy? Like one attorney in your life that you think is dumber than this guy?
You know, it started out fine. Like, okay, he doesn't want to incriminate himself, but then it just got worse and worse. And I'll be honest, Brian, I've listened to quite a few attorneys. I know quite a few attorneys, and he might be the worst attorney I've ever heard talk in my life.
Yeah.
Just considering how
So it got worse and worse.
How bad that? Yeah, it started. Like,
Sounds like the Mindy Robinson interview.
You know, there's some parallels to that.
A lot of parallels.
But
actually.
you know, in this situation, okay, fine. He's got a high school education. You don't want him to talk to a licensed, practicing attorney. I get that. But then going on, I mean, then the worst part again was saying, hey, he was at his house. Things happened. What do you mean? The video was taken in a truck.
Well, you know what?
How could you possibly make that statement?
JD, things happen. We lynch African Americans all the time. It's not something that we're not used to here. I mean, that's really what I.
What he meant to say was he was at his house. Greg McMichael called him up, said, Roddy, grab that cell phone, get in that truck.
Very good
We're
voice
chasing
tone.
one down. We got another one. Like, that's what he actually most likely meant to say when things happened and he had to stop himself. And then when he said that there was a trial, no one's accusing him of anything at this point. They're just asking standard questions. So obviously there's some corroborating evidence that is a bit damning to Mr. Roddy.
Wait, is it Roddy from Price is Right? Because on my wall, it's true. I was a big Price is Right fan. Me and my grandmother used to watch that show every morning if I skipped school anyway, and which I did a lot, by the way. So maybe I could go to school there and pass. But
and the
quickly,
scariest part about this, Brian, and just really fast, I wonder how many people in Brunswick, how many African Americans something like this has happened to, because I bet it's more than one.